All right. I can tell you we're not too many days away from the deadline for the San Diego Angel Conference. The application deadline, it's far less than 42 days. So it's December the 15th. So we're not that far away. Hope that all of you are working on your GUST applications and getting ready to go. When we close the applications after the deadline on the 15th, one of the options that you'll have is you'll have access to the Brink team to be able to step in and take a look at what you're working on and see if they can help you polish some things up, do their best to help you put your best foot forward with the investors. So I don't know that I've mentioned that before, but that's something that would be great for you to know. If you're already working with somebody at the Brink, they'll help you take a look at your deck and all the rest of your materials to help get you ready for the event. The platform that we use is Gust. So if you haven't started yet, the best and easiest way to do that is go to the website, thesdangels.com/apply, and you'll find that button there that will give you the runway access to Gust. Also, we could not do this without some underwriters. So we're very happy to have Nextwork as our title sponsor this year. Nextwork does outsourced design work and software development. So if you are looking to have help on anything that touches programming, they're a great group and they would love to be able to sit down and talk with you about what you're working on and how they might be able to help you. We also couldn't bring this program to you without a powerful group of partners. So I hope many of you attended today's San Diego Innovation Council showcase. We had a number of the companies that have been through the Brink or the San Diego Angel Conference that participated there. And that was a great chance to see San Diego innovations in healthcare and also clean tech. We had a couple of different tracks for that. We work with many of those partners in the San Diego region. So if you're looking to raise money or take a product to market in biotech or in software, we can do pretty much soup to nuts, and you have lots of choices about incubators, accelerators, and support services. So very happy to have this great group of partners who help drive companies into this process and also help us place investors. Quick note on how things work. So this is session 9. This is session 9 of the E-Track, which means we're winding down. We're coming close to the end. And at the end of the E-Track, that starts the San Diego Angel Conference process with investors. So overarching goal of the Angel Conference is to activate new angel investors in the San Diego region. And we do that by handing them a bunch of deals and helping them sort through them. So we'll have, I'm expecting well over 100 companies apply. The investors will take a look and they'll make a pass. They'll just be looking at the information in Gust and they'll make their first pass in Gust. They'll work together and vote. They'll get to the top, probably 24 to 30. And then they will bring those companies in for a formal pitch. So short, we'll bring 24 to 30 companies in for a 3-minute pitch with some moderated Q&A, a great networking event. And if you start thinking about what those numbers look like, if we have 30 people in the room and 30 founders in the room and 70 investors in the room, those are pretty good odds for you. So pretty exciting stuff. Then they'll vote again and try and get down to the semifinals. So pick 12 companies, invite those companies in for a 10-minute pitch, another round of selections to get to the top 6. And then for the top 6 companies, they'll go through a full due diligence process really fast. So we do it in 5 or 6 weeks. And then we'll hear the pitches one more time at the grand finale. So regardless of where you fit in the process, we'd love to have you join us for the finale. It's a great event that happens kind of towards the end of March. And we'll pick a winner and we'll make real investments. So every investor's purchasing units starting at $5,500 a piece. All of those dollars get pooled. We always have a goal to raise $200,000 for the winning company. Last year, we raised over $700,000 and we were able to fund 5 companies. So the winning company went away with $295,000 and 4 other companies went away with investments over $100,000. just in how the numbers are looking right now. So I'm going ahead and moving to our investor page. Just in how the numbers are looking right now, we have as many investors in the pipeline right now who've signed up to get access to the documents and consider investing in the fund as we had invested in the fund when we finished in March last cycle. So super, super excited about how things are shaping up for investors. We are excited about having to figure out how to solve a whole new problem and how we're going to move more money. And really excited to bring this program to you. On the screen there, you have, this is our fund management group. So fund managers, co-fund managers, Brian Engelman and Sumner Webster. I can see Brian on the call. Brian, you've got the nice fall background. Do you have anything you'd like to share tonight?
No, well, maybe 2 or 3 things. First of all, just I missed last week. It was the first week that I missed. Happens to all of us. Real life got in the way. Coming back this week again, as I've said almost every week, great to see so many people back. I'm still seeing new names, which is fantastic. I just want to thank some of the folks that are lurking out there as well. As busy as they are. I try not to double or triple book. I think Sylvia Moss sometimes quintuple books herself, and she still finds time for this. She was the first fund manager at SDAC. I see Amy there as well. She was the fund manager last year. Just amazing. We've got an amazing team here, and I'm glad that you all are here taking advantage of that.
All right. So with that, I would like to introduce our first speaker. First up tonight, we have Raven O'Neill. She is the Executive Director of Stella Labs. She's also the chairperson of the Women's Venture Summit. She's an entrepreneur. She has her own company called Savvy Gal. And she's been a major advocate and force for female founders. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen or I will make my screen smaller. I will find where my screen went. I'll stop sharing my screen, and Raven, I will turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Raven O'Neill. As Misty mentioned, I'm the executive director of Stella Labs. It is a female-focused business accelerator out of San Diego. We support entrepreneurship for women-led businesses, 50% female ownership to go through our programs or take advantage of our offerings. We focus basically on ideation, launch, early stage startup. And then on the other end, we deal really well in access to capital. You're ready to speak to investors, but you want to make sure you're all buttoned up and ready to do that. So that's really where we play. I also lead the Women's Venture Summit, which is an annual event that happens in September. It is a female-focused access to capital event that really focuses on activating more women investors to invest in female-led startups. Of course, we love the gentlemen to attend, but just like all the other things we dabble in, it does have a female focus. So it's really what I do tonight. I am really going to dive into deck design and the reasoning behind some of the things you might do for those of you that are early stage founders. Really, you might be up against the fact that you don't have a budget to hire someone to do that. So you need to attempt to do it yourself or with a very small budget. And in other cases, you're just doing it yourself and you just want to get that start. So just really focusing on what you need to present. So I'm going to do a little bit of a backup. So I did this last year and I apologize if it ends up being messy in a little bit when I dive into actually showing you my screens. But I'm going to pretty much talk about, I'm going to break down just a little bit of background in branding, just so if you are doing it yourself, you can kind of learn a little bit about the rhyme or reason as to those decisions. Then I'm going to go into deck design, and then I'm going to go specifically into pitch and investor deck design. So kind of in the buckets. Then I'm going to attempt to share my screen. I have 3 examples that really touch on a lot of the things I'm going to go over. They are decks that were given to me at some starting phase, and I worked with that founder to bring them to where they needed to use it as a presentation deck. So then I'll use those examples to go back to what I talked about and really dive in, and then I'll open up to questions. I don't think I'm going to take 40 minutes, so hopefully we can get all of your questions answered and really dive in. So I guess I'll start off with backing up into branding. If you are not a marketer yourself and you cannot afford to hire someone to do your marketing, I highly suggest that when you're doing your pitch deck, you start out by choosing 2 colors you're going to use and maybe a pop. Try and keep it extremely minimal in that sense. If you are not going to have someone design your deck to break out all of the points that you're going to need, I highly suggest creating a master. If you've never done that, usually it's somewhere up in the menu that you can find it. And in that, it will open up a master and you can put the items in there that you want, and it will then auto-populate it within your deck. It is the easiest, simplest way to do something if you don't have any other things up your sleeve. I usually in corporate settings will start a master and then go from there. A lot of the decks you will see that I'll show you later are very custom. There is no master. It was designed with a specific purpose and a specific reason, but that is my suggestion. So when you get into deck design, it really starts off as your deck, whether it is a corporate sales deck or whatever kind of deck it is really set for visual cues. It is your storytelling. A deck should be there to highlight your speaking points and drill messages home, not the reverse. You should not be, anytime you're presenting, the focus should be on you, and your deck should be the drill home, set it in your memory, really backing you up, not the other way around. So with that, I always tell people that everyone has a short-term memory. And first of all, you do not want them reading, because if they're reading, they're probably not looking at what you're talking about. They're not focused on what you're talking about, and they're probably not retaining it. And especially if you're going fast, they probably didn't capture all of it either. So I really try to tell people to think, if you weren't going to read it, they're not going to read it. So really try and make your deck about a backup to the conversation points you're having, not the other way around. So people get overwhelmed. I don't know about you guys, but if I get an email and it's 5 paragraphs deep, most likely, if it's not super engaging, I'm not going to read it. It's the same thing with a deck that's presented. I will break down in pitch deck specific cases where that might be different, but really that's what you're looking at. In regards to design, and this is a design not specific to a deck, but in general for your collateral, anything you're building, your visual cues and the places where you put words and choose things are literally leading that person's eyes. So, it's just like we read left to right. It's the same thing within a pitch deck or your collateral or anything like that. In regards to design, you're attempting to pull their eyes to where you want. So really understanding a space within a deck and what elements you are using to draw the eye to a point. So this gets into whole, like I said, I prefer things on a minimal scale. And that's really because if it is overwhelming with words or visuals, your eye doesn't know where to go. You're like, where do I look? I don't know what to focus on. And again, if you have someone doing that while you're pitching them, they're probably not hearing you and they're not seeing it. So they're really missing the message, and it's your one chance to grab their attention, right? So you want to do it well. So later on, I'm going to show you examples, but when you start to pitch to investors and you start to use your deck at pitch competitions and whatnot, sometimes you are going to be taking a lot of information and attempting to convey it visually. So really learning how and why you might want to do that in a very specific way will help you present further. I will show an example, because if you don't see it, I'll share one next, because if you don't see it, you might not understand what I'm talking about, and that might not make sense. And I apologize. So let's dive into the pitch deck. Most of the founders I work with, you will actually end up having two main pitch decks. You will have a pitch competition deck and a deck that you present to investors. This is different because your audience is different. So just like we talk about knowing exactly who your customer is and doing that research, you should always do the research on who you're presenting to, whether it is a pitch competition or an investor or a VC group, whoever it is, you should be doing the research that you would do on applying for a job, in the same sense of knowing exactly who's that in that audience, and treat it like a resume. It should be a living document that then gets redone every time to meet the specific need of that audience. It is not a one and done. It will be different for every audience that you present to. In that same vein, I said there are two. So in the case of two, usually if you pitch to an investor, you will also have a second version that you might deliver post pitch that then does have all the content that you didn't want them reading while you were pitching them. So you can have the two versions. I've worked with several founders that have what they would consider a reader deck for their investors, but then also the pitch deck that they use to then pitch. And I see a lot, I'm sure you guys have done it too as founders, that like have an appendix that really has all the information that you're going to give them post pitch. So next, in regard to design, and this is something I find, again, I'm not sure where all of you are at on your journey, but there is a rhyme or reason into the aesthetic in regards to your industry. So Dr. Sylvia Ma's on the call. She's our board chair. Her and I used to talk all the time way back in the day about industry specific. So I don't actually have an example for you of a medical company, but if you're presenting a medical company, your pitch deck should feel medicinal to a degree. It should reflect exactly what you're presenting. So I'm going to show you a deck that is that I redid in a wine tech company. And so I'll use that as an example later to show you. But when you think of wine, you think of rich flavors, rich textures, just a richness in general with the experience, right? It's an experience as a product or as a tech. So with that deck, I really worked into attempting to make it feel luxury, like an experience. So it's the same thing, depending on what industry you're going into, relating that in a message. If it's financial, it should have that like financial feel. Depending again, back to the branding where you're working, branding colors have psychological influences. Red is a power color, blue is an international, easy, everyone can accept. So you see a lot of these companies and they're all in blue, like financial companies, most of them are blue, right? And that's because blue resonates within that financial industry and it's not offensive anywhere. Blue is actually apparently the one color that's not offensive to most people. But you want to make sure that when you're choosing those colors and choosing your storytelling and the reason that you play within that space. So you just really, again, want to make sure you play into your audience in all of those ways. Again, I try to go back to minimizing the information that you're presenting in a deck and really talking through what you're attempting to convey. Because if you have an investor that's interested and you've piqued their interest in any way, they can ask you for more information. They can ask you for that next meeting. But if you've lost their interest in the pitch, then that's probably the end of it. So really covering what you need to, but not overextending the information in the deck. So now I'll give you guys, I went super fast. I apologize. I just rambled through that in like 10 minutes. So I'm so sorry. I'm going to attempt to share, this might be messy, so I apologize in advance, but I'm going to attempt to share some decks and show you exactly what I'm like referring to in regards to everything. So actually, let me see. I don't want to get this messy. Okay, hold on. Am I sharing the wrong screen? I can't see what you guys are seeing. Are you seeing my email?
No, it's just your desktop. And now it is the
Now you have
PDF
decks.
everything.
Perfect. So this was a pitch deck that actually Sylvie and I worked on together several years ago. So this was a founder that was going through one of our programs and she didn't have a logo. She had all of her things underway, but she hadn't really fleshed it out. So actually where I started with this one is immediately as you go through her deck, there's just not a lot of, she's definitely got the shape as a symbol, but no real definition. So with hers, a perfect example is I actually created her logo. I am not a logo designer. I just wanted her to have a really good starting place. And I chose her two colors. I didn't ask her. I just kind of did it. I went with this blue and this green, just to really simplify the information. She had really liked the geometric symbols. Word escapes me right now. So I stuck with that. I'm going to go back to this one to just kind of show you where like information and how it's conveyed is important. I think this is the slide. So this was her problem business, her problem slide. Again, it's just like it's expected that you're going to read this. So with her version, Sylvie and I really asked her to go into the details. So not only did we ask, like, don't explain it, but let's throw some numbers at it. Getting real specific, you know, investors like numbers, people like to see impact in the numbers. So we brought it into, instead of having it text, have it be visual numbers. So really bringing that information in. So if you're, again, presenting like ideas, it is even better to have numbers. I recently looked at two decks that really presented market potential based on the market. And I, again, went back to the founders and I'm like, let's work on this slide in regards to, ideally, it would be very specific to your market. It wouldn't be just a general market slide, but it would be specific to your industry and your actual attainable market. So again, goes back to the branding. She didn't have branding in place. So I really brought it down to the two colors and I really minimized the amount of information on each slide. Instead of text, we went with visuals and worked at it that way. This is, hold on, let me see my notes. I apologize. So this is, I'm going to use this copy. This actually, I met this founder at last year's event for this, and then I worked with her. So hers is a wine app. Her deck is pretty basic. She covers all the things. This is a perfect example of that, where you draw your eye. So she definitely chose two versions of that, the level, the upping of the level, and also the dollar signs. So when I redid hers, I really focused on the feel of wine. How does that feel? It feels really elegant. It definitely conveys an emotion that I think that she didn't see when she had created hers. So I took hers. Lucky for me, she had just worked with a logo designer. So this is her brand new logo. And I actually used that to pull the content, to pull the colors out. So trying to find that slide. So this is her business model slide. And like I said, she had chosen the sliding and I really liked that. It does definitely pull your eye in, but there are other ways. So instead I up-leveled the dollar signs, put them in a different color, and hopefully your eyes flow there instead. But again, it's just the simplicity of the information. You know, I talked about pulling your eyes in. Here's the team slide. She's the founder. I put her in red, but put the other ones in gold so that the first thing you see is the red, especially because red again is that bold color. So I also did this one. This is one about white space. I really enjoy some white space. It is hard to get away from having clutter when you're not used to what a clean deck looks like. So I worked with this founder. I like this as an example. This is a great example of an event pitch deck, a pitch competition. This slide, she was attempting to put the new mom economy, talk about the market. So the biggest thing here she has is that the 46 billion millennial parenting market. So when I worked with her on this, I literally got rid of all the other noise and just made it about that. So again, that's the point she's driving home. When you're speaking to it, if you show something like this versus what she had, that's what you see. That's what you're going to remember, not everything else that was read there. Another one that I really liked is on this particular one that we worked on. Sorry. She had this is her growth scale, and she just had the overall scale, but we dove in a little deeper into the telehealth industry and just made it about this. This deck does have animation. So that is probably laying on top of like that because of animation. And without playing it right now, I'm not sure. Which I am a pretty big non-animation. I feel like it can throw you off and it can be very distracting, but if it's your thing, try and keep it minimal and make sure there's a reason behind why you're doing it. So it makes sense. So I guess I'll stop sharing and I'll answer some questions. Maybe I should try and see where like difficult information was conveyed. I don't know that any of these, sorry, as I fumble around with my three. These are great slides for a competitive landscape. As you can see with all of 3 decks, I really like a competitive landscape that is really, really clean. They all tend to look the same, but especially when I do it, they all really look the same, but they have that same feel. You can actually work back. I'm not even gonna get into that. Sorry, apologies again. So like this is timeline, just really simplifying it. Back to Vina Voyage. Her timeline was this, and she had this slide up here that really she wanted to show the product, but didn't want it to be empty. So she placed text next to it. When I redid that slide, I put them in one. So you still get the product and you still get your traction slide, but it's not 2 different slides that take up space, especially if you're doing a pitch competition and you're attempting to cover it in a time frame, really bringing that down, allowing you to still see the product on a tablet like you normally would within the other slides, so that again, you're getting rid of one slide, but you're still covering your slide. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking now. Again, hold on, apologies. How do I get out of this? Someone jump in, kill it. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, I'm fumbling around and I know how to use Zoom. Because it's over here, because it's on my other screen. Oh my goodness. It's because I have 2 screens and I don't normally use this other screen because I have my email over there today and it was over there. I'm like, where's the, okay. So I apologize. I kind of rambled. I don't know if I made sense. Hopefully you got something out of it. I am happy to open this up to questions. I'm happy to, I don't even know, Misty, can they share their decks and we can talk about changes that I would suggest they make?
If you're open to that, well, of course, and we may want to do that. We may want to do that after Kaya's presentation. Have people just share some, because he'll have some input too. So that would be great. But there's a couple of questions in the chat. So Sorry, I'm having to scroll back. Oh, somebody asked if you could share an ask slide. You know,
Ooh.
is there?
Ooh, let me see if I have one. I don't know if any of those had an ask. I didn't look. Let me see. That one doesn't.
So a lot of times if you're doing a public pitch competition, they don't want you to make the ask, but we need you to practice it here because like go join contests. That's great. We want you to do that, but we really want you to get the money. So we need you to get in front of investors and you need to be prepared to make that ask. So we're, you know, nobody's trying to sell anybody on investments here. We're just figuring out how to do the thing. So don't mistake it for a solicitation. That's my official word.
I did. They want to see an ask slide just to see how I presented it.
Yes.
Okay. I can show you the one that was in the one I did. I know I have better examples, but I wasn't prepared for that. So I'm digging. That would take way too long. But let me go back to the one I have, and it does have the ask. We really went simple with this one. Now I remember too that the screen is over there. So, so this one had the ask. It was a 500 convertible note. And we just broke down exactly where that money was going to be spent. I personally am now seeing this and I'm like, oh, look at that odd space. See, this is, there's an odd space between technology and development and customer success. And now I'm going to be nitpicky with my own deck that I did like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. But yes, so this was her ask. Very, very simple. Again, we just placed the number amount in a nice bold green background where hopefully it's very clear that that's the ask. And on that left side, those is where she's gonna spend that money. All right.
I think someone else has asked for an example of an end slide or a summary slide.
Like I should just share the whole deck, like each
I
deck.
do have one. Let me look it up, Raven. Just give me a second. I have a really good one.
A good thank you.
I just have to look for it for like 2-3 minutes.
So actually here.
May I ask or just kind of clarify what I'm looking for? So
Yeah.
We're pitching, it's really exciting actually. We got selected to pitch for Rocky's Venture Club and they're inviting only 3 or 4 women founded companies in Colorado to pitch on Thursday. And I know that in the past, I have to ask them again what the format is, but they liked the last slide. They like to see, you know, this is the ask, this is the traction, this is the team, this is, so they've broken it down. And I don't remember what it looks like, but I know that you would have it much more beautifully designed than any old examples that I have. So that's kind of what I'm looking for.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Say hi, Karen, by the way.
Hello. Hello.
I'm sorry. Give it to me again. So are you looking for format? Is this in regards to the question on the last slide?
Yeah, this is, yeah. So I have seen, so our end slide actually says, you know, we hope that you'll join us in making McKenna a $1 billion healthy household name, right? Or something like that. And then we have a little QR code for people to download the app. But this particular group has asked for a specific format so that it leaves, and you leave it up on the presentation so that the investors that are attending can see traction, team, ask, and there's like 6 things that they want to see. And it's basically taking everything that you've just presented to them, summarizing it in just like, you know, maybe 6 little blocks on your last slide. And I haven't seen any really great examples of it. All of it looks really clunky.
Okay,
I'm looking
so
for something simple. Yeah.
I have not seen anything like that either, but let me go back to, I'm just gonna share the desktop.
I can jump in. I have 2 examples too.
Oh, okay, perfect. I'll do this really quick.
Yeah.
This particular one, she had these buckets. And I didn't like the way she had presented the buckets. So I created this to then bucket them out. They were just bullet points and they just felt very lost in her deck. So I pulled them out like that. So I might, for that, I would probably do something like this.
Yeah, can you leave that up for just a second? I've seen something, I've seen something like this. Okay, and people saw it. I see something like that if you want to have a final slide of why you want to invest in this company. So, you know, I have revenue, I have this, I have that, I have this, and there's 6 of them here. It's nice to have a slide like this. I've seen lists as well. And I know that that's not the formula that they want, and I'll go into that, but that's like that last slide of holding that up there saying these are the reasons why you would want to invest in me. It's kind of like the first 2 pages of due diligence report saying these are the investors strength, or like the investment strengths. And then of course the due diligence report then goes into the risks, but the strengths, they can see this right here at the very top. And that just allows them to go right into like, okay, these are the reasons why we would invest, and then ask questions after that. So that's one thing. I'll show you another one right now too, if you don't mind unshare.
Absolutely. It's on the other screen. I want to add too, like, this is just a little bit of marketing background. So like Sylvia mentioned, about the information, when you are doing a list, try and start off with positive action words. So I always try to say, in regards to communication, never say like, we expect this. No, this is what you're going to accomplish. So always try and use a very firm words.
Yeah, and I would echo that too, is that if you use all those words, verbs first or all nouns first.
Yep,
whenever
always.
you list. Yeah, keep it consistent. Also, investors, if you don't have consistency, they're going to pick all the inconsistencies of your deck, like straight out. So don't be consistent with like the color, like Raven has said, but like even just the list, be consistent with verbs or nouns, because actually they see that, because they've seen so many pitch decks, they can pick it right away. So this is one company, Revessel, remember Raven?
Mm-hmm.
I love her. This founder is awesome. And she was having a very hard time with putting kind of everything together, because she was a consumer product goods. She's sustainable. She's this, she's all of these things. And her deck is always very white and very clean. She
I love it.
wanted it that way, right? So this is about the audience. This is about the go-to-market strategy. See how she uses those icons. Our business model is 2-pronged, super easy. And then we worked on this a lot. So she wanted it to be, and then what we added, I don't think I have the newest one, but we added over here on the right-hand side, but we actually put it at the very top, is that she had a Kickstarter campaign. I think it was here. Did she have it? No. So she had a successful Kickstarter campaign, and we, in this grid, you know, Kickstarter is green. So and because she's sustainable, it's kind of fun. So we put at the very top Kickstarter with that like little plug of Kickstarter saying what that metric was. So these are all the metrics that, even though she's super early stage company, she's able to kind of talk to investors in this way, saying, we have this much revenue, we have these many customers, this is the average order total. Not that it's that last one that they want from Rocky's Venture Club, but this is a good view of that last slide that you can have a great conversation with investors on. And then the other one is not this one. This one I sent to Raven earlier, not this one. That is my institute. No.
You guys didn't all get that, by the way. We work together every day.
So this was one of Aquacycle. It's a $3 million raise. This is all that she's been able to do. She's had these many grants and from Angels and the foundation. This is way back in 2020.
We're still looking
can't
at your other
see.
screen. We're still
Yeah.
looking at your other deck.
Thank
It
you.
was still Revessel.
So something like this is, funding needs is the Series A is 3 million. This is the valuation. This is what she's been able to do on the left-hand side. Close of 5 million of existing 130 pipeline. And then this is the grants that she's been able to secure. So that kind of, I know that that's not what typically, what they're asking for, but something as simple as this, so they can check mark down. And then what I've also seen is a pie chart of the use of funds. A pie chart is super easy to grasp and say the pie chart, you can see 50%, 25, 80%, whatever that is, and they can quickly see the use of funds instead of them reading another list. So I would do the list of like, this is how much I'm raising, this is what the deal terms is, this and this and this, because they're trying to fill out their, I'm gonna butcher this, so I'm just not gonna try to find it. But that's what they're trying to fill out. And then I would do the pie chart for the use of funds. And back to you, Raven. I don't want to, this is your show.
No worries. I know that we're going to do breakouts. Someone did know, and we are going to do breakout sessions where you will get the opportunity to ask very specific questions, and hopefully we can support you in helping you move it along. So I guess I'll see if anyone has any more questions. If not, I'll hand it over because I know our next speaker's also amazing. And Misty tells me that we're all in for a treat.
Okay. Any last questions? Else we can definitely have those same questions be brought up into the breakout room as well. So we'll take a quick 3-minute break. So it's 6:14. Maybe meet at like 6:17 or so. Cool. It's 6:17. So Misty, if you want to introduce the next one. she might still be on their break. So.
Everybody. I am having a little bit of trouble with my deck. So I would like to take the opportunity to introduce Kaya. Kaya is the CEO of a company called SlideBean, and he is going to be taking us through the next section. So with that, Kaya, I'm just going to hand it over to you, and you can share your screen as you see fit.
Sure. Hey, hi everyone. Thanks a lot for having me. You guys are Pacific time, right? So it's a lot earlier for you. Okay, that's fine. Cool. I hate to keep people up at night when I'm speaking. So now I'm less self-conscious. So you should see my screen now, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool guys. So I still don't want to keep you up too much, and I like to make my chats more conversational than just me talking to a screen. So I'll try and do that. Okay, but I'll start by saying that kind of the big purpose of a pitch deck is selling your capacity to execute a business, not so much selling the idea, right? Because ideas for the most part are worthless without execution. My company does this. We help companies prepare their documents and their data room for investors. And yeah, we get a fair share of companies that just don't have the capacity to execute on the ideas that they have. And that's probably the easiest to, one of the hardest deal breakers to fix, but one of the easiest to catch. So there's a lot of the slides on the deck and a lot of my thesis around building the deck revolves around, hey, proving that you and your team can actually execute and build on this. So, well, why would you need a pitch deck? Because your core job as a founder or as a CEO of a startup is not running out of money. you can talk all you want about building cool products and engaging people and changing the world, but if you run out of money, then none of that can happen. So that's, I guess, job number one as a CEO. And my experience with this, I'm speaking from experience because my first company, my first startup, ran out of money. We started this company in New York City back in 2012. It was this mobile gaming platform, which sounds really dull now, but that was, wow, now 9 years ago now. And back then, like starting a mobile app company was cooler and like more edgy than today. And now my current business, which is Slightbean, we've been running for 8 years almost now. We've been operating profitably for a while, but we did raise some venture capital. And kind of like the big difference on how I approached fundraising for both of these companies was that with Potatoes, which was my previous company, we tried to raise money on a dream, and we had some really good stuff going on for us. We had we put this project on Kickstarter, so we were able to meet the Kickstarter goal. TechCrunch took notice of what we had built, and they published an article on and called this thing like the next Angry Birds. That was the headline of the article. So it was insane that we had all this massive bunch of people talking about us, all the Kickstarter people kind of backing us up. And we thought that we got accepted into this accelerator in New York called Dream It. So we had all this going for us, and we were very sure about when we went into an investor meeting, we were pretty sure that, hey, like this is us, we're fucking rock stars. And TechCrunch called us the next Angry Birds, so you should fund us. And we failed time and time again at raising money. Now with Slightbean, it was still a tough process. I sort of came from failing at raising money, only 2 years back. And this time I try to approach it with metrics, and metrics was sort of like the difference that allowed me to raise capital. Now, that's not to say that you can't raise money on just an idea, but it's a very different approach. And the more metrics you can have and the more traction you can have to raise money, the better. I hail from, my network's in the East Coast. So we always have this idea about West Coast investors or like funding stuff at an idea stage and not caring about valuations and whatnot. And we did 500 startups, which is this pretty well-known accelerator in the Bay Area. And I remember one of our first few sessions with the partners, all the companies were 30 companies in our batch. And they're like, okay, so I need a show of hands of how many of these companies are planning to raise money. Okay, show of hands. During the program was the question. Raise money in the next 3-4 months during the program. Show of hands. Okay, and they started asking everybody for their unit economics and their traction, how much revenue they were doing, how much that was growing. And for like 80% of us, they told us like, don't waste time. Don't use the time in our program to get your metrics to here, because trying to raise money with those metrics is futile. So even in Silicon Valley, with the backing of 500 startups, traction makes a huge difference, and you should try to get and bootstrap your way to traction as much as you can. An important variable with decks is also what you're using them for. Because in my head, there are 3 main reasons why you'd need a deck, and those decks look slightly different. Most decks that people make are what I would call an email deck. Classic email deck is a deck that needs to be self-explanatory. We already talked about it a little bit, but it needs to be self-explanatory. Somebody receives it, they need to consume it on their own without your background, without your context or your narration. So self-explanatory. And then what they pitch is very different, because you're going to be standing in front of it. So the slides don't need to spell out everything that you're going to say. There could be more of a guide to you to sort of stay on track on what you want to talk about and sort of illustrate what you're going to say. The in-person meeting deck is probably the most complex and the one with the most slides. You are going to pitch that deck, or you are going to go through those slides in an investor meeting. And you're probably going to spend maybe 15-20 minutes talking on top of those slides. So you can take the liberty to make a longer deck. On an email deck, the reality is, and we've tracked this because we track investor views, and the guys from DocSend do that as well. So the metric is that investors are willing to spend about 3 or 4 minutes looking at the slides in the deck. So if your email deck is longer, if you need more than 3 or 4 minutes to consume this deck, chances are people are going to skip some slides, or just going to skim through some slides, not read everything that you put in there. So there's no point in doing it, is what I'm trying to say. If you make a deck that takes 8 minutes to read, you can almost have a certainty that people are going to skip through and maybe read what you have in bold, or read the headings, or get bored and skip through some slides. So don't do it. Make sure that everything that's in there, know that they're going to read it. So that's important. So, but before we even get into deck and the structure of the slides, which is what I'm going to be mostly talking about, let's talk about companies and whether you're ready to raise money, not only because of traction, but also because of the type of company that you are. Because there are different types of funding, and different types of funding apply to different types of companies. Super early stage, seed stage companies are probably aiming at raising money from friends and family. I think people often underestimate how important it is to try and raise money from friends and family. A lot of investors will expect you to have raised a little bit of money from your network before you go to a complete stranger to pitch them, because that speaks a little bit about your network. In the end, your company's potential success relates to your ability to raise money. So if if you need, say, $500,000, maybe less, maybe $200,000 to start your business and to get to somewhere, and you're going to strangers for it, or people that that you've never heard of, and you're pitching them, that's, maybe it's not a red flag, but that stands a little bit as a flag, because ideally you could have raised a little bit, at least a little bit of that money from people that you know already. Not all of us, and I'm included, like I didn't know enough people to raise $200,000. We probably raised like $30,000 from friends and family at the early stage, but at least it was something. Again, prove that you could, on your own, navigate a little bit of a network and raise some capital. Banks are another source of funding, as in small business loans. They apply to a different type of company, but that's one thing we're going to talk about in a sec. Government grants is another one, and it's one that I think a lot of people overlook. A fair share of governments, especially outside of the US, have established programs to aid entrepreneurship. There are a fair amount of programs in the UK, in Europe. We did one called Startup Chile, which essentially gives you $35,000 and takes no equity, with a catch that you have to go live in Chile for 6 months. It's not that bad. But it is quite literally free money. So if that's the amount of cash that you need firsthand, like, consider government grants as an option. And then, of course, angel investors and venture capital. But here's how venture capital, that extends to accelerators, to how venture capital thinks about a round. Say your company needs $500,000 to get started, or that's what you're aiming at raising. And say that you're aiming at giving investors somewhere in the 15% range of the company in exchange for that cash. Not an out of the ordinary round these days. So that means that if 15% of your company is 500K, then that means that the company is worth, the total company, 100% of shares in the company is worth $3.3 million. And here's a question: is your business worth $3.3 million today? Why, if you have no revenue, if you have no traction, how or why would your business be worth $3.3 million? Even if you're selling $10,000 a month, how does $10,000 translate into $3.3 million valuation for the business? If that, right off the bat, doesn't make a lot of sense. So why would your company be worth $3.3 million today? Well, maybe it's because your business is going to be worth $33 million, so 10 times that within 5 years. Why? Because within 5 years, it's going to be selling that, or because somebody's going to buy it for that. So, how can a business how can a business be estimated at a $33 million valuation? Well, maybe it has a great EBITDA margin. EBITDA is just your earnings before taxes. So, well, maybe you're generating a lot of profits, and if you're generating $10 million worth of profits, you could say that your business is worth 3 times that. So that's a way to get to 33. Well, maybe another company is willing to acquire you, and your technology or your team is worth so much to them that they're willing to pay $33 million. Fair. Maybe your company doesn't make revenue. It's what people would call a pure play. But somebody's willing to acquire it because of the value of these users and their potential. Random note: when Facebook acquired Instagram, Instagram had around 300 million active users, and the acquisition was for about $1 million. So it was literally like a 3-point-something dollars per active user. That's what Facebook paid for Instagram, and that was the way a way in which they measured it. Well, maybe it's worth $33 million because you're going to be able to raise more money at that valuation, another reason. Or maybe you can become a public company. That's another route. So again, on that question, can your business be 10x its value within 5 years? That's a question that you want to ask yourself if you're going for venture capital. And if you're not, if you can't sort of get on these valuation mode, then chances are your source of revenue, your source of funding is other than venture capital. And if you're not fundable yet, or if you don't think so, don't panic. There are ways to survive. We bootstrapped our way to this for probably like a year and something. We did some consulting jobs on the side that helped paid some of the bills. So there are ways to do it. Don't quit your day job just yet. If you don't feel that you're ready to be fundable, right? A lot of people don't believe me on this, but this is a fantastic article. So Elizabeth Yin was one of our advisors at 500 Startups. She has a fantastic blog. You can take note of this article in particular, but in general of what she writes. She has some fantastic content, but she essentially will repeat everything that I just said, just in case you don't believe me. Okay, so before we get into the actual structure of the deck, I want to stop speaking and see if we have any questions so far. Let me open the chat here. Oh, somebody's watched my YouTube videos. That's cool. No more. So I'm looking at the chat. If anyone has questions, type them in there. Thanks a lot for watching. Cool. Okay, so no questions. I'll just go on. Hopefully we'll get some later. All right, let's get back to the actual deck. All right, so the ultimate question that a pitch deck needs to answer is, how much money are you going to make me investor? That's it. I mean, you can hear a lot of talk about investors believing in teams or being bullish about this industry, or them wanting to connect with the founder. Yes, that's all true, but in the end, it's all about how much money you're going to make them. Period. Right. So don't forget that is the ultimate question that the deck needs to answer. But we can break that down into 4 core questions, which are, first, what opportunity have you discovered in the market? So what do you know about the market that other people don't, or that other people aren't solving very well? 2, what have you built? Well, of course, what's your product? So what have you built to tackle this opportunity in the market? How does it work? Who is it for? How does it make money? Next up is, how much are you growing now, and how much will you continue to grow? And then, why are you, and you by extension your team, why are you the team that can change the status quo? So in the end, all these questions relate to that original question: how much money are you going to make me? We can break that down into those additional questions. And to me, almost keep a note of these questions when you're working on the deck, because sometimes you can start diving too deep into sort of like the problem statement and the the problem statement, or the market size, or the go-to-market. But in the end, it just needs to answer these questions. So sometimes you have to sort of zoom out and try to look at your slides from a different angle, from a different eye, and realize if these questions have been answered. Now, some common problems before I actually get into the slide structure, but some common problems I find. Well, what if you don't have any traction, right? Fair. So if you don't have any traction, ask yourself, well, do you really need to raise investor money now? Are you absolutely sure that you need to raise investor capital now? Because there are other alternatives. You can hustle. You can not quit your day job. If you've read the Lean Startup, the book, and if not, you should. But Lean Startup talks about a bunch of things that you can do as an MVP that are not an actual product built. We actually stole this recipe from the Lean Startup. So I'm not going to take credit for it. But when we started Slidebean, instead of building a product that people could use and try, we just made a video. We made a quick video, put it on YouTube, put some ads to it, and checked how people reacted to it. And we put a video saying, oh, we designed in the past. So we designed this tool and it works like this. And we added these features and it does this and it worked like that. And your slides will look like this. So all in the past, sign up button, come sign up here. And that took people to a landing page, and that landing page was blank. I mean, there was nothing behind it. There was this big sign up box, and you would add it and you enter sign up, and then you'd get to a screen that said, hey, well, thanks for joining our wait list, and we'll let you know when it's live. But there was nothing about a beta, nothing about the product not being ready. We're just lying to people on this landing page. But it was a really good way to realize like how many of these users are really willing to sign up for this thing. I think that the conversion rate for this landing page back then was like 25%. So for us, it was enough to see like, oh, well, okay, people are interested in this product, and we could build it. Any new product that we've launched since then, we've done quite a similar experiment, which is do a video. This was even before we had an audience on YouTube. We just paid ads to it, but do a video, push some people to it, push some people to a landing page, and see what happens. So there are ways you can sort of bootstrap your way to it. Also, in this day and age, if you're building a software product, honestly, it's not that expensive. Building software just takes time, but it doesn't take a lot of money. Now, it's really important that your team is able to build the software. You're not gonna outsource that to an agency, which is my next slide. You should not raise money to recruit an essential team member or to recruit an essential skill. This is a very common question or a very common dilemma I see founders struggle, because most founders are not technical, or most entrepreneurs are not technical in the sense that it's just like a personality thing. It's usually extroverts or people that come from a business background or from a marketing background that feel the itch to start a business. And those guys are not technical. They can't build software, right? So they're always looking for these tech co-founders. And sometimes they go as desperate as saying like, I can't find a tech co-founder. I'm just going to hire an agency and they're going to build a product for me. But, look at the startups that are successful. Look at the, not even the Facebooks. So look at the Instagrams and the Snapchats. Like all these companies have engineers in their founding team, because the founding team needs to have the capacity to build a product and to build a better product than anybody else. That's a unique insight that only the founding team can have. So essential team members should not be employees. They should be co-founders, and they should be on your pitch deck before you go to an investor. I have this rule. I came up with this little rule, which is the founding team needs to have the skills to make the company 100K. So without hiring any external skills, maybe an extra pair of hands to help, but not external skills, you should be able to build your first 100K revenue. If you're building an app, your team needs to be able to build an app, launch it, get a few users, get some money. And once you have that, you'll be able to raise money to hire talent that you need, maybe a CMO or a better UX designer. But the basic needs of your business need to be covered by your founding team. And you don't necessarily need those skills before that. In our case, we were both, myself and my other two co-founders, we were all product people, mostly product and design backgrounds. We didn't have a marketing person in our team. I sort of formed myself into a marketing person by just trial and error. A little bit because the company kind of needed that, right? We needed somebody to do marketing. My two co-founders were further down. We're kind of more focused on the product. So we're like, okay, well, that's there's nobody else. I'll just take that task. And even today, I'm super disconnected from the product. I sort of leave that responsibility to them. My responsibility is just driving traffic to the site. And that's the way we split our work. But again, we were able to get those skills and those needs from within the team. All right, so now I'm going to talk about the slides finally. Sorry about that. A lot of intro. Okay, so let's remember those questions, right? So to me, the deck should be structured into these 6 sections: intro, status quo, product, market, why us, and the ask. And to me, each one of these sections, or most of these sections, are in response to one of these questions that I mentioned earlier. So again, the status quo answers the question of, well, what opportunity have you discovered in the market? And how are consumers doing this now? Why does it suck for them and for everyone? And how do we, and what have we discovered that nobody else seems to have discovered? On the product, well, of course, what have you built to tackle it? How does it work? Who is it for? Pricing is included there. How do you make money? The market. So how much are you growing in this market? How much are you growing already? And how much will you continue to grow? In other words, how big does this company get? And then the why us. So why are you the team to change the status quo? Those are the 4 questions that answer that broad question of how much money are you going to make me? The intro is just the intro, and the ask is just logistics, boring stuff, money, how much money you need and whatnot. But the meat of the deck is in those 4 sections. That's where you make it or break it. If you sold your deck well, and you have and you're asking for too much money, or your valuation is crazy, you can negotiate. But valuation doesn't matter. You can have the lowest valuation ever. If you haven't sold the company and the idea, that it's pointless. So now actually breaking those sections into slides. Now some of these slides are optional. I have this little chart on it, which I think I didn't include in the deck, but I can share so you guys can distribute it. We also have an article on TechCrunch coming up, I think next week. Chart's going to be there, so you can be on the lookout. Okay, so some of these are optional for me. The intro is just the cover slide, which a lot of people underestimate. I'm going to get into the details of each slide. Attraction teaser, sometimes I like to do that, which is just teasing on how much traction you have to get some credibility early on. So if you have a few $1,000s in sales early on, even before we know what you do, it's cool to kind of brag about that, and you sort of build your credibility from the second slide in the deck. Sometimes I come across these decks of companies that are, they're pitching a weird product or something that I'm not a big believer in, and I'm already skeptical. They're going through the product, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm not too convinced about this. It's a very complicated market, or maybe it's a very crowded market. And then they get to traction, and they're making $200,000 a month in revenue. I'm like, what? You should have told me this 5 slides ago. It'd be, I would have looked at all of this with a whole other perspective, right? So if you have some stuff to brag about, like that's simple, easy to understand, yes, that's where attraction teaser I think is really useful. Status quo is all about the problem slide, what the problem you discovered, or the business opportunity in the solution. Product, this is the section that I think has a lot more optional slides. Some slides that you could include: product or product screenshots, benefits or features about the product, the infrastructure, tech infrastructure, if you have some cool technologies down under the hood, market validation and what you've done to sort of prove that this makes sense. You have your audience, or like who's the perfect user persona. You have use cases. Those are great. I'll get into that in a sec. Business model, of course, and how you're making money. And then milestones, roadmap, which could be stuff that you've achieved, and also a bit of a roadmap of what's going to happen in the future. That's all about the product itself. It's an exciting section, of course. Then the market. So market is all about traction, go to market. How are you going to market? How are you going to attack the market? Potential outcomes for the business, and of course the market size. So how big does this company get? Then you have the why us section, which is competition, competitive advantages. Why us, kind of like that's an actual slide in itself. Why us, which is some cool stuff that you have, and you have patents or some sexy technology that nobody knows. That's the place to brag about it. You have press or user testimonials, and then you have the team slide. That's the why us. And then finally the ask, which is really a financial. It's more, not boring, but exciting, but the financial section. So I see a question on 6 slides. No, these are not 6 slides, by the way. These are 6 sections, but it's just kind of a way to structure it. Again, remember each section is tied to one of those questions we talked about. So now I'm gonna dig a little deeper into each one of these slides. Tips on each one of these slides, but I'm happy to talk a little bit more if you have questions. So like I said, the cover. A lot of people think about a tagline for the company is really, really hard, because you honestly have 2 taglines. One is like your marketing tagline. I don't know, Subway, eat fresh. Like that's I don't know. I guess that's a bad example. I don't know. ClickUp probably has a tagline. I don't know what it is. It's marketing tagline. Get shit done or something. But that's not what you want to put in that cover slide. You want to describe what you do. We're a project management platform for small businesses. That's ClickUp. But coming up with that tagline within 5 or 7 words is sometimes really, really complicated. I see a lot of companies struggle to do that. But just try to make it simple. Just tell us in the simplest way possible what you do. It takes practice. Sometimes this is a genuinely true story. Sometimes I go on meetups and I try different taglines about my business because I'm still not sure which one to use. So I try it and sort of see how people react with these 5-7 word taglines. to see if they catch it or not, or if they ask a follow-up question, or they just look confused. So that's a very genuinely good way to try. Just pitch it to random strangers. Like I said, you could have a traction teaser if you have some good metrics on traction. I mean, 200K was an exaggerated example. If you're making 10K a month in revenue and you're pitching an early investor and that revenue is growing pretty fast, that's the place to put it. Just put a chart, hockey stick charts on your current traction. Like, that's really exciting. If you have it, if you don't, then don't, but it's good. Some people like to put the team slide up here, which is weird to me. I'm not a big fan unless your team is really, really exciting, previous exits and stuff like that. I would save the team for later. Then we have the status quo. So this is the first section that answers one of these questions. Could be 2 or 3 slides. No, I sometimes see 2 problem slides just to kind of elaborate on the problem or the business opportunity. But essentially that slide is, what problem have you identified in the market? What have you discovered that other companies haven't? And why hasn't this been solved by anyone? To me, it's usually 3 or 4 sentences that make it crystal clear. If you show that you understand your product well, you're almost showing that you understand your solution well. I really like the problem section because it's almost an aha moment. Like, I've seen decks where I see the problem and I'm like, oh man, like that's a real pain point I have. I hadn't noticed. I hate doing blank this way, and I waste so much time, but I just hadn't thought of, I haven't thought of a solution. And if you're sort of teasing and telling, hey, we've discovered this problem, I know that the solution is going to be around that. And sometimes, again, the aha moment on the deck could be as soon as your problem slide. The solution then becomes a bit of a mirror of the problem slide, just answering those questions. Now I'm going to link to Airbnb's original deck. A lot of people reference the Airbnb original deck, which I think is a fantastic deck. Looks like shit. So our team redesigned it a couple of years back. So this is the redesigned version, but this is actual Airbnb's actual deck from their Y Combinator demo day thing. Problem statement: price is an important concern for customers booking online. Hotels leave you disconnected from the city and its culture. There's no way to book a room with a local or become a host. That's the problem. This is the context of 2009, but that's the problem. It's so simple. I mean, obviously it's 12 years later. We can see how this was an insane opportunity now. But at that point, you read those statements and you're like, whoa, that's true. Oh, really important, like, don't use statements that an investor could easily disagree with. Like, I see a lot of social media startups, companies trying to do stuff on social media. It's like, people hate social media. That's one of their statements. And they're like, well, I don't hate social media. I have my fun on TikTok and like just stalk people. Like, I enjoy it. It's a waste of time, but I enjoy it. I wouldn't say I hate it. So if your statement gets questioned from the get-go, you sort of lost the point with the investor early on. So make sure that these statements are validated, ideally with some scientific, or not scientific, but some real world data. If it's a statement that's questionable. In this case, none of this is questionable. We can all kind of get behind it. And then the solution, it's almost a mirror, right? You have 3 statements, you have 3 solutions, right? You have, in this case, it's a web platform where users can rent workspace and host travelers. They can save money when traveling, they can make money when hosting, and they can share the culture. Each one of those 3 literally connects to one of the 3 problem statements. So it's a bit of a mirror. Okay. Next, we have not the solution. This is the problem or the product section, not the solution section, my bad. So product section, again, you don't have to use all of these slides. You could, but you don't have to. And always remember that, and don't forget that people want to spend, investors want to spend 3 or 4 minutes on your deck. So don't make your deck longer than that. So that's where you have to kind of decide which to include and which not to include. So you can have a product slide where you break down your product, shows how it works. Could be a little demo, but in my experience, I don't guarantee that investors will watch embedded videos. So sometimes the screenshots are like a guarantee that people will get it. We have features and benefits, which is bragging about the benefits that the user might get from the product. It's not about features. Like one of my favorite examples is our platform is responsive, right? You can use it on your phone. And then a way to phrase this as a feature, which is very technical and boring, would be, oh, fully responsive platform with support for devices, or fully responsive platform would be a way to phrase a feature. That's cool, but if you want to bring it down to earth, you could say, edit your presentation anywhere, even on your phone. And that, that just kind of changes the message to something people can connect with. I see a raised hand. Nicholas, you have a question?
Yes, I just wanted to verify how many slides.
On the deck, you mean?
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't, there's no, I don't believe in a hard rule about this. I think that the hard rule is the 4-minute thing. So that's absolutely key. Usually that's going to mean somewhere between 12 and 18, maybe up to 20 slides.
Okay.
You could have a slide that's really simple. That's just a screenshot, and that just takes 1 or 2, maybe 3 or 4 seconds to consume. So it's not so much about the number of slides. To me, it's more about the time it takes to consume the deck. You can time it yourself. You can read it and time it.
All right.
Yeah, Jasmine.
Yes, Kaya, thank you so much for your presentation. I wanted to backtrack to the slide about traction. So you said, if you don't have traction, don't quit your day job, hustle. And you were talking about the wait list or the landing page. So my question is, what is a good number or a good amount of folks signed up to get an investor's attention? Like, how can you, get money from, what's a good number that makes them take you seriously for a wait list? And I mean, it's probably very subjective, but.
Yeah, like for example, I wouldn't put a wait list on this traction teaser section. To me, that looks more like market validation, which would come later. Like that traction teaser is delicate in the sense that it needs to be something that investors can really get excited about early on. If you start and say, hey, we have this product and we have 1,000 people on our wait list, like, okay, well, that's cool, but that doesn't really translate to your ability to generate revenue or usage on the product. Maybe 1,000 monthly active users, that could be more exciting. Or maybe maybe you have 1,000 monthly active users which grew from just 200 last month. Like that's exciting, right? It's just this huge spike because people are starting to adopt the product. Waitlist, waitlist is relevant. I think it has a place in the deck. Not sure if it's in that traction teaser.
Thank you for that. Market validation. That
yeah,
like really
which is by the way a section of this. Maybe I forgot about it, but it's here on the product section. You have their market validation, so that'd be one.
Okay.
It's inside this product section, which I misnamed here. Yeah, market validation could be, hey, we started a wait list. We have people excited about it. We've gotten on 100 phone calls with these users. We understand, we've validated what we're thinking. That looks like market validation to me. Yeah, so we have we talked about feature benefits. Audience, I think, is important. I was talking to this. It was like this blockchain. This is like a new fad, apparently. A lot of companies are doing like NFT-based games. I spoke to 2 companies who do that today, which was, I don't know if it was a weird coincidence, it seems to be a hot space now. And one of them was saying, oh, who's our audience? Well, it's people 18 to 55 in Europe, Asia, North America, and South America. And like, well, that's pretty much the whole world, right? So it shows that you don't understand who your audience is, right? If you're doing NFT blockchain gaming, you're obviously in a very niche, very people who are into the whole blockchain space. It's not a broad of a thing. So showing that you understand who your customer is really gives you points. If you have a B2B product, understanding who is the buyer inside the company, who is the point of contact, who are you targeting to sell to, that's also useful. So that's the audience, or kind of like the customer persona sort of slide. Use cases is another good example. Just showing a use case if you have it. Ideally, if it's some real world data and saying like, hey, this is how this company is using this, or this is how this individual is using this. This is a use case. Usually works better for companies or for products that are somewhat complex or hard to grasp. We have business model, which is, don't get crazy on the business model. Don't go into projections of how much money you're going to make. That's not what we're asking here. It's literally how you make money. Is it a subscription? Okay. Is it a percentage of transactions? Okay. Is it ad revenue? Okay, like that. It's simple as that. Don't feel a need to fill that up. And then milestones and roadmap, should be very detailed for what's going to happen in the next 1 or 2 years. Obviously, which 1 or 2 years is the amount of time that this round is probably going to fund. So that's why it's so important. Yes, we want to hear a little bit about your long-term vision, but that's further down the line. So tell us about what's happening soon. Now for the market section, remember we're answering how fast are you growing and how fast will you continue to grow? That's the question here. So traction, of course, now that we understand your product, we've seen the business model, we see the problem that you're solving. Now tell us, okay, so what's traction? How much are you growing? If you don't have traction, then that's fine. Don't put traction if you don't. Again, it's fair to do an idea stage. If you're an idea stage, you're probably going to be pitching more friends and family. Investors or super early angels, and that's fine. But just accept that you don't have traction. No need to add anything. Go to market. A lot of people get confused about this slide, and the biggest mistake I see with go to market is they just go out and list every single campaign. I saw this on the deck yesterday. They were like, oh, well, we're going to do pay-per-click and social media ads, and we're going to host social media, and we're going to do influencer marketing and SEO and content marketing and some affiliate marketing. Well, you've listed half of all the possible marketing tactics in the world, which shows that you don't really understand which one's going to work for you. To me, a great go-to-market slide talks about one thing that you absolutely dominate and that you know that you're doing well, that you've done before. Double down on that, give me some numbers, some unit economics of how that could work or how that's working for the business already. And then maybe talk about one next good marketing tactic. Everybody probably will have to do social media. Everybody probably will have to do some content marketing. So those are pretty obvious, right? So unless that's your core strategy and you're ready to defend it with your sword, like talk about the ones that are really relevant. And then finally on market size, a lot of people go and say like, whoa, we're building this restaurant. I saw that these are all real examples. I saw this, they're doing like a restaurant, like a delivery platform for South Africa. They have Uber Eats and they have, they have most of the brands that we know. So delivery platform for South Africa, and their market size slide was restaurants or food is a $7.1 trillion industry. Like, I don't care if it's a $7.1 trillion industry. You're going after that. You're not replacing every restaurant in the world. What we care about on the market size slide is how big does your business get? So if your business is a delivery platform for Africa, then you could say, well, how much money is being spent on delivery? How much of that audience is the audience that you target? And then that's the total spend, but that's not your market. Your market is your commission. So out of that spend in food, your 10% commission, so 10% of that's kind of your market, your TAM, total addressable market. We have this really good video on this, which I'm going to link it now. It's by one of our investors, Steve Barsh from Dream It. We collaborated on this really good video on TAM. He probably makes a better point than me on how this works. So I'm going to paste the link in the chat right now. Just a sec. Found it.
We can't manage work like this.
Sorry. There. He'll have much better points on TAM. Also, by the way, these slides are here if you want to keep them. Okay. Now, okay, the why us section is about why you, what makes you special. So we have competitors as one, obviously comparing yourself to who's out there. You could do a little feature table, but sometimes I also like to simply list 2 or 3 core competitors and tell us how big these companies are, because that's also a reference on how big your company could get. If you tell me that there's a competitor that's $100 million business already, and then the market was like a $2 billion market, it's like, okay, here's this competitor. They have some presence. They've raised the money. They don't own the market, but it gives us a reference on how big this company could get. And then you could take that opportunity to also trash them and say, well, they're there, but they don't understand this and this thing that we do understand. So that's a combination of competitors and competitive advantages. You can divide that. Then, of course, the team. Why are you the team to beat these competitors? And once again, prove and show me that your team has all the skills needed to get this company to 100K in revenue, maybe more. Those skills are just encompassed in your team. Then finally, the ask, which is again, your financial projections, usually 3 or 5 years of financial projections, fundraising, how much you're raising, use of funds. Yeah, not a lot much to add there. Yeah, so now it's questions time. Last 2 commercials. You know, we can help you with a bunch of these things. Probably for most of you guys at your stage, our templates, our pitch deck templates, which sort of quite literally follow this approach, are probably the best way to go. They're free to use, so you can find them on slightly.com. And then we published this course on Skillshare. So I created a little code, like a promo code for you guys on that link there. So you have the, well, I'll copy it. So this code gives you free access. Oh, I'm sending all the messages to Dominique. I'm sorry, I'm not sending them to everyone. My bad. Sorry. So this is the course. Sorry. This is Steve's video on TAM. And then these are the slides. Sorry about that. Okay, cool. So that's all I had for today. Super happy to take questions and stop just talking myself.
Questions for Kaya? And let me just open it up. Kaya does tons of things on everything that you care about. So if you have questions on raising money, convertible notes, term sheets, you can lay it all out here for him.
Mm-hmm.
Kaya, you can also pass if I'm putting you on the spot about stuff that if I'm having them pitch you questions that you don't really can answer.
Am I coming through?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I got you.
No, I don't hear anything. Speaker not working. Okay. Am I coming through?
Yeah, we got you.
I'm not hearing
Timothy.
anything. Someone else can go. I'll figure this out.
I think he can hear us.
My audio is not working.
All right, I'll take some of the ones on the chat. So intro deck and a longer expanded post intro deck. Yes. So yeah, short answer is yes. The email deck, 4 minutes. If you get a meeting, the email deck essentially is a deck that gets you a meeting. Doesn't need to answer every single question in the business. Just need to get people excited, investors excited. If that works, then you'll get a meeting. And then what you'll bring to the meeting is probably a version of the same deck, maybe expanded a little bit, maybe some annex slides, maybe a couple of slides that you chose to hide because they were just too much on the 4 minute line. Yeah, but those are the ones that you bring to the meeting. Biggest don'ts to put in a slide deck. Oh man. Well, some people talk about the exit strategy. I think that it's like nobody knows what your exit strategy is. Like you can have an idea of what company could buy you, but yeah, like don't put that. I normally don't put, unless you have a committed investor on your valuation. Yeah, you have a committed investor that has given you a term sheet. I wouldn't put a lot on valuation. Just say like, we're raising this money. Interested? Okay, let's chat and we can negotiate if you're looking for that lead investor. If you have a lead investor and you have a term sheet, then yes, you'll do, okay, these are our terms, this is valuation, this is our discount cap, whatever. And those are pretty non-negotiable because you already have investors on board with those terms. So you don't have flexibility there. Aside from that, I can't think of, weird market size slides and just listing every marketing thing on the go-to-market. Those are probably the most common mistakes I see. Okay. Oh, awesome. Somebody who knows Lightbeam. Thanks a lot, Solar. It's cool. This didn't used to happen to me, that people already knew what Lightbeam was when I did these things. So this is still appreciated. What is the most memorable slide deck that you have seen? It was a wow factor. That's good. I mean, I've seen some good ones. I don't know which of these are public or not. I like my favorite public examples are the Airbnb deck and the Uber deck. I think both of those are really, really strong decks. The Airbnb deck was a demo day deck, so it's not that self-explanatory in what's on the slides. I don't think the demo day footage is out there, but the slides are available online. Our redesign is available if you want to download that as a template. Yeah, those are very common, very talked about, and they're really, really good slides because they're just so simple. They compress this, it's the Airbnb, it's this insane Airbnb unicorn public company business summarized in 11 slides, which is just a master work of summarizing. Then the Uber deck is longer. The Uber deck's probably like 20 something slides. I think there's a TechCrunch version of it. We also have a redesign. It's a good deck because it breaks some of the rules. It has some good slides and some good approach to solving these things. It has this slide on potential outcomes, which says, well, what's the best case, worst case, and realistic case scenario for what could happen with Uber. And if you look at it, Uber is now bigger than their best case scenario. So it talks a little bit about, well, maybe these guys had this vision from the get-go and they just didn't want to put it on the deck because it could have been seen as ridiculous, or in reality, when they built this deck, they just didn't know what they had in their hands. So that's a fun slide. It's a bit disorganized. The Uber deck, it's I would have ordered the slides differently, but there are a lot of good slides in there. Shitty design, but it's a good deck. All right, so let's see. It was my first website I went to in regards to starting a startup. Hey, thanks, man. This is appreciated. Timothy, did you make the video yourself or pay someone else to make it, and for how much? Good question. So I'm a digital animator, even though I'm a CEO now, and all I do is live on spreadsheets. Yeah, like I'm a digital animator by trade. So I made that video myself, but you can hire a little agency to do that for you. Like the agencies out of India that do like little animated explainer videos. Fiverr, you can probably get something within what, $1,000-$1,500 in India or in overseas. If it's in the US, it's going to be much more expensive, but I think it's a small price to pay instead of starting to write code, which anyway you slice, it's going to be more expensive. There are some really great platforms to making videos yourself quickly and easily. Yeah, there are. I can't think of any right now, but I'm sure there are. Yeah. Cool. What else can I answer?
Hey, Kaya, thank you so much. All of the things that you gave us were insights that were kind of a different perspective. So I'm still letting that all sink in and absorbing all of it. So thank you. I was going to ask, it's more about presenting, but is there any space on those 6 sections where you should give a decent amount of your time, or what's the amount of time you should maybe spend on each of those? Is there any one that if you had to drill it down to a very small space, like that you would concentrate on, or that could be more powerful than the rest? I mean, besides the ask, obviously, but.
No, like, I don't think that the ask is very powerful. On the contrary, it's like the ugly part when we talk about money. Like when we were selling, like somebody sells us this really cool trip to Bahamas, and then at the very end they sell it and they're like, oh well, it's $3,000. Like, oh, okay. Like nobody wants the ask. Everybody wants the other stuff, the dream. No, I don't think that you should put more weight on one or the other. I think that, usually a deck is about 15 slides. I'm going to share the chart that I was talking about. Usually a deck is 15 slides, and to me, the balance is exactly that, like 15 equal parts to 15 different topics. So no, I don't feel that there's more weight on one or the other. Let me find that article. Examples. Well, this article also has some examples, so I guess that kills 2 birds with 1 stone. Just a sec. Yeah, this is it. It's an old article. There's a newer version coming. It's the TechCrunch version that's coming, but for now, that's the latest version. All right. What else can I answer, guys?
I think maybe we'll go ahead and jump over to breakout rooms. We can take a quick break if you need one, but otherwise Monty can open breakout rooms and you can have a little more time with Kaya or with Raven, or if you have, boring old logistical questions, I always have a room for you to come